and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel in the first place. Today we have a Tamaki Yamajiki ex-listener. I hope you enjoy this one. I really like it. It's definitely going to be longer, because this one is like 2.3k words. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. Tamaki Yamajiki reminded you of winter. On the surface, many mistook his social anxiety as cold, harsh, and a distant attitude. Others weren't very fond of him. But you didn't fit into either category. You are a lover of winter. Winter may be cold and lifeless season, but it has its own type of beauty. The pure white grass that graces your grass and the roof of your house that always makes you smile. Watching the snow fall upon your shoulders makes you smile, and the howling winds lull you to sleep. Despite his internal demons and insecurities, Tamaki overcame all the obstacles that stood in his way. As his childhood best friend, along with Mirio, you watched Tamaki grow from a fragile and small snowflake into a beautiful and powerful blizzard. He was fragile at times, but resilient and determined. And in between years of being his friend, you grew fond of his antics. Whenever he got excited about something, his voice would grow louder and his posture less guarded, and sometimes he'd even wave his arms or hands. Or when he tried out something new with his quirk, you were the first one to know, and he would do a demonstration for you. You'd invite Mirio over, and the three of you would play around and test Tamaki's quirk. There were so many reasons you adored him, so many that you didn't even have enough hands to write them all down. Despite the love and affection you had for your best friend, you knew that being his partner wasn't possible. He had problems with himself, and it wouldn't be fair to put another weight on his shoulders. With that mentality in mind, you never attempted to approach him romantically, and instead stayed at his side like a loyal friend. Both of you were stubborn and oblivious to each other's feelings, and it wasn't until the day you learned how to skate on ice that your relationship with Tamaki changed. Time skip. I don't know, Tamaki, you stammered, your legs trembling like a baby animal walking for the first time, gripping onto the short dividers with a death grip. Come on. Tamaki slid and skated in a circle. His movements were firm and fluid, and you watched in awe. How could he move with such ease? He looked like he was in his element. His shoulders were relaxed, and you had rarely seen him express so much body language. The icy cold environment was his comfort zone for sure. You'll enjoy it, I promise. He offered you a small smile and outstretched a trembling hand. But this feels awful. I don't know how to ice skate, and unconsciously you removed a hand and began to wave it dramatically. And, you yelped as you were tugged forward and nearly toppling on top of the blue-haired boy. Tamaki! You refused to look down at the ice and stared at him. You gripped his shoulders in a tight grip, refusing to release him. Oh God! You felt your legs tremble violently and move in opposite directions. Tamaki's hand clutched your upper back, and for a moment you felt lightheaded. Calm down, Tamaki spoke in a low voice. You can do this. You averted his gaze, but noticed how the tip of his ears reddened. You can hold my hand if you want. You froze. Tamaki slowly raised his gaze at you. The tip of his nose was bright red. He was cold to the touch, and you could even see puffs of cold air when he spoke. When Yamajiki noticed he had stiffened and remained silent, he imagined the worst. His eyes widened, and he slightly backed away. Or not. You don't have to, if you don't want to. It's fine, he began stammering, his face reddening even more, but you quickly interrupted him. No, you nearly squeaked. Tamaki furrowed his eyebrows in confusion. You cleared your throat, shaking your head. You offered him a wide smile. I'd love to. Tamaki perked up. His eyebrows shot up to his forehead and his eyes widened. Oh, was all he said as he dropped one of his hands to the side, unsure of how to continue. Tentatively, you slipped your fingers inside his palm. His fingers were cold to the touch, but once your hands were intertwined, you let out a heavy sigh of relief. You were too nervous to meet Tamaki's gaze, and despite the cold air that bit at your nose, lips, and hands, your cheeks heated up. Was he as flustered and embarrassed as you? The two of you stood in awkward silence. Well, you tried to balance yourself so you wouldn't fall over like an idiot, until you felt a soft squeeze on your hand. It was light, and had you been distracted, you probably wouldn't have noticed, but at the moment, all you could focus on was the boy standing next to you. Smiling, you met Tamaki's gaze. He was smiling as well, though you could tell he was making a great effort. He wasn't very fond and comfortable with physical contact. He was trying his best for you. Your knees felt wobbly at the thought, and your entire face felt like it was on fire, but you were quickly interrupted by Tamaki's soft voice. We should get moving now, come on. What you need to do is slightly bend your knees. Don't crouch, but bend them. Slowly you did as you were told, and you felt yourself regain balance. You grinned. Good, that's good. Tamaki nodded in approval. Do you still want to hold my hand? His face was far redder once he was done talking. You nodded vigorously, maybe a little bit too excited. You thought with a wince, but agreed nevertheless. If you don't mind, I would like to. Tamaki was about to reply when Mirio's loud and cheerful voice interrupted your moment. It reminded you that you weren't alone with him. Tamaki, listener, what is taking the two of you so long? Come on, it's much nicer on my side. Mirio waved frantically from the other side of the ice ring, and you couldn't help but laugh in amusement. Squeezing Tamaki's hand for support, you pressed your hand onto your cheek and shouted, "We'll be right there." Your voice was far more ragged and throaty than you'd like. Just give us a second. You heard Nigeria giggle faintly. She was watching the two of you in amusement and shot a knowing look to you, which you replied with a playful glare. Are you ready? Tamaki asked. You swallowed nervously and nodded. Let's just get this over with. Slowly, the two of you began to skate towards your friends, Tamaki instructing or advising you on how to move every now and then. God, this ground is so slippery, you mumbled, shaking your head in disapproval. I feel like any moment I'm gonna fall on my ass. Tamaki laughed softly. You smiled when you heard his laugh and squeezed his hand. This is ice, listener. His smile was the brightest so far. It's bound to be slippery. You grumbled in disapproval and rambled about the damn ice and stupid skate shoes. Tamaki chuckled. On occasion or two, you nearly fell and he had to grip you by your elbows for support. The chattering of the other children and parents echoed in the room. Once you arrived on the other side of the ice ring, Nigeria and Mirio skated towards you and grinned. Finally, Mirio grinned towards you. I thought we would have to wait another hour for your arrival. You rolled your eyes but smiled. Well, we're here now, aren't we? Nearly died a couple times, but, you know. Nigiri snorted. You felt Tamaki's cold hand wrap around yours, and how the girl's gaze drifted towards it before quickly looking up. I did see you slip, but there's nothing to worry about. After all, you have your hero Tamaki to protect you, right, Tama? She cooed with a mischievous glint in her wide eyes. Tamaki stammered next to you and forced down a gasp. Nigiri, you scolded her, though you could feel your voice quiver with embarrassment. Mirio raised an eyebrow at this, but said nothing. Instead, he skated away and grinned. Come on, guys, are we gonna stand around all day in this cold ring or actually have some fun? You groaned dramatically. Mirio, I just got here and escaped death a few times, and you want me to do... You waved your hands in circles. That? Mirio laughed. He spun in a circle and smiled smugly. Yes, listener? You sniffled. Nigiri giggled and skated past the two of you and noticed how Tamaki had gone silent. When you turned around to face him, he was looking at you already. His eyes slightly widened, but Tamaki remained silent. Do you think you can help me? You lowered your gaze to the ice, brushing your thumb across his knuckles. Of course, follow my lead. His voice sounded squeakier, but you decided not to question him. Time skip. Though it took you some time to get the hang of it, you were eventually skating along with your friends, racing in silly games with Nigiri. Tamaki had drifted towards Mirio, and you saw they would briefly talk about something, and whenever you would look towards your crush, you would smile shyly. You'd simply return it. The two of you seem really close today. Nigiri stood next to you, grinning like a madman. Flustered, you averted your gaze and bit the inside of your cheek. I don't know what you're talking about, Nigiri giggled. You know exactly what I'm talking about. In fact, I think you should go ahead and tell Tamaki, since it seems that neither of you will ever confess, and with that, Nigiri sped off. Wait, you skated after Nigiri, but your skills were far more amateur than hers. You felt your heart crawl up your throat as you raced towards Nigiri, who was quickly approaching the boys. Nigiri, you nearly growled, Don't you dare! She giggled and winked at you in response. You were out of breath and your legs felt like jello when you finally reached your friends. Nigiri was already talking to Tamaki, who stared at her with furrowed eyebrows. No! You exclaimed. Tamaki's gaze snapped towards you, and before you could react, Nigiri had giggled and moved out of the way. You were unbalanced and out of control. Tamaki didn't have time to react, and before you could blink, you toppled on top of him. His hands lingered on your waist, your legs between his. The two of you were breathing heavily, and you could faintly smell his scent. Tamaki's eyes were blown open, jaw slack. He was frozen on the ground. Your hands were pressed on the cold ground, feeling your heart race, ready to leap out of your ribcage. Swallowing nervously, you smiled at Tamaki, and his hands tightened around your waist. Hi, you said nervously. Nigiri and Mario laughed behind you and murmured. You paid them no mind, being so close to your crush, felt as if you were alone with him. Just you and him. You could sense everything, his cold hands weighing down on your waist, his long legs spread apart, and his warm breath fanning your face. After awkwardly staring into Tamaki's deep blue eyes, you're ready to get up and pretend that this never happened, but his grip tightened on your waist. You furrowed your eyebrows in confusion. Gently, you pressed a hand on his shoulder. Tama, we have to? You were sharply interrupted by him. I like you, he blurted out. You would have staggered backwards from the shock if his hands weren't holding you down. Jaw slack, you watched as your best friend's face bloomed red, and you felt your own face heat up with the warmth. Tamaki licked his lips and squeezed your waist gently. I like you, listener, and I have for a long time. You're my best friend, the most beautiful person I've ever met, and I love you. His mouth clamped shut after the last words, as if they had escaped without his permission. His eyes widened as they watched you expectantly. With a relieved laugh, you smiled. One of Tamaki's hands slackened on you, and your hand slipped inside his. I like you too, Tamaki. You lowered your head, leaning your forehead against his. Oh, he murmured, his eyes trailing all over your face. That's good. You smiled. His eyes lowered to your lips, and he licked his own. Can I kiss you? Instead of replying, you cupped his head and leaned down towards him. His lips were chapped and cold against your own, but kissing your best friend was bliss. The moment your lips touched, warmth traveled down your throat and bloomed in your heart. You were quickly out of breath, and so was Tamaki. The two of you pulled away and breathed heavily, staring at each other in silence. Woo! You heard Mirio shout behind you. Finally, I've been waiting centuries for this. Nigiri let out a shriek of happiness. You laughed softly and Tamaki joined you. Come on, we should get up. Tamaki nodded in response. You slowly rose, and once you balanced yourself, helped Tamaki hoist himself up. The two of you approached Mirio and Nigiri, who engulfed the two of you into a bear hug. You laughed against Mirio's chest and glanced at Tamaki. He smiled back. Moments like these, hugging your friends and kissing your best friend on the same day, were moments that you would never forget. They would spread warmth in your heart for as long as you lived. Alright, so that's the end of this one. I hope you enjoyed. I have a little bit of news about the channel. So starting on the 14th, we're going to be having a little Christmas special, which is probably going to be like 12 Days of Christmas or something. Anyway, there's going to be Haikyuu and BNHA, so look forward to that. I think that's about it. I'm going to try and write one of the stories, but I don't know how that'll go, so we'll see. Also, music link, fanfic link, Amazon wishlist, and Discord link will all be in the description. If you do fill out the Discord form, please make sure to read it entirely through and read the instructions on it, because that is very important for you to actually be able to join. Because I can't just invite you if I don't, I can't message you unless you're in the same server or added as a friend. And that's just kind of how it works. But either way, I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, whatever, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye!